Hello, everyone. Welcome to LOA Cork. This is Holly.
And this is Jeanna.
And everybody, we are live streaming on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And did I call it Tomb?
Well, it might be a tomb if nobody shows up. So let's hope the tube is in action and people actually show. That's what I think.
Okay, listen, everybody go to LOA Cork channel and check out our guests, because not only does she have a lot of things behind her name and in front of her name, all around her, okay? You got to see her megawatt smile.
For sure.
That is what I think defines her. But let's talk further. We have a Reverend Dr. Julie Moret in the house. Listen, she's the author of What's Your What? Or is it What's Your What? She's holding it up. How to Ignite Your Unique Brand.
I love it. Okay, I always wondered if you were a reverend and a doctor, whether the doctor came first or the reverend came first. But
I'm
it
putting
makes
the reverend.
complete sense.
You put the spiritual part first.
Always.
Absolutely.
Yes, I had hope
All right.
in that.
I'm glad we agree. We can't. We don't have to argue, and we're going to keep going.
No, we can keep going. Yes.
Okay. She's an accomplished talker. We just rebranded speaker.
Yeah.
Okay. So we said speaking is scary, but talking isn't.
Yeah.
So she's an accomplished speaker. We won't put that on our rebranding.
No.
And personal
but
coach.
it was mine. And she's like the quintessential rebrander of all things that don't even need to be rebranded. And so the speech thing was my sister, who's afraid of speaking, and she's kind of working on that. And I said, well, just think about it like a talk. It's not really a speech.
Accomplished talker.
There you go.
And personal coach. And she holds degrees in a wide range of healing modalities, including psychology, linguistic programming. I call that NLP. She's also been featured on Lifetime television channel.
I love it.
And enjoys working with clients from diverse backgrounds, including Fortune 500 execs, Academy Award winners, something you wanted to be. Oh. And now maybe she can help you, actually.
Still will be. Listen,
absolutely.
life's not over
and
yet.
Several New York Times best-selling authors.
Yeah.
She also hangs out and works at the Agape International Spiritual Center as a speaker, as a talker, as a mega talker. And she's a member of their leadership board. She also, this is a cool fact. I mean, Jeanna, I just want to sneak this on you.
Oh, God.
She was knighted by the Order of the Orthodox Knights of St. John Russian Grand Priory, alongside guess who? Jack Canfield, Don
goodness.
Miguel Ruiz, Michael Bernard Beckwith.
Wow.
And she also has a really super cool TED Talk that I think everybody should go check out, because I love it's growing your uniqueness, grow your know, and galvanize your yes.
Wow.
Go hang out and check that out. I think it's super cool. It's going to be inspirational. She inspires me.
All of this will be in the show notes.
Absolutely. Yep. And I'm going to stop talking and welcome Reverend Dr. Julie Moret to LOA Cork.
Fun. I wanted to sit and listen to y'all for a while.
We want you to come over.
Already.
Actually, no. We would like to come to California and hang with you. Yeah,
we'll come to California. We'll play.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Welcome. So
Thank
do you go... Should I call you Reverend? Should I call you Doctor? Reverend Dr. Julie? How would you like us to address you today?
Whatever you're comfortable with, really.
Okay.
You know, I have in certain parts of my life, people only refer to me as Reverend Julie. At home, I'm like, hey, you. You know, so it's like whatever.
As it should be. Yeah. All right. Well, Reverend Julie, how we typically start our podcast is just an opportunity for you, beyond what Holly shared, to kind of share with our audience a little bit more about yourself and what your life trajectory has been, and what brings you to today. Just to ground the conversation before we get into some questions.
Yeah. So a lot of what I speak about now is how to find our thing. Like, you know, my book, What's Your What? How do you find what? And the reason why that's what I speak about so often is because I didn't know for so long I'm somebody that was kind of generically good at a number of things, but not like really exceptional at anything. And I just really wanted to know, like, why am I in this life? What's the point? What's the purpose? You know, what is this about? What's going to make it worth it? Because there are a lot of challenges, there are a lot of difficulties. And so I have spent a lot of time finding out different tools, different practices, different strategies to help really quantify and clarify, like, what is our what is our thing? Because when you're on it, when we're doing what we came here to be, life feels very juicy and compelling. And when we're off of it, it feels like drudgery. So I think that that's really, I've told some of my stories many times over about how I kind of got to that. But what I finally realized is that I had become like a muse to so many people in my life. I was often like at the side of very famous people, and it was frustrating. And I didn't know, like, am I just going to be like a permanent wingman? Until I realized, I'm not even going to do the whole story, but a very famous artist called me years after we had been corresponding, and he said, you know, you were my muse. And I didn't really get that. And so once I owned like what my thing is, that's the gift, because I'm an inspirational speaker. So, and I own that now. Like, I'm not that it's just how I was built, you know? And we all have something that was built into us. So I like helping people, including myself, figure out, like, what are you wired for? And how do we get into it? How do we do it, you know, and be it?
Okay, I love that.
Right?
Because she has no idea she's my soul sister.
Yeah.
So, and I'm going to tell you why. Because I felt like, and like so many, that I felt I was good at everything and I could change myself and become a chameleon to actually be whatever you wanted, right? Sure. And I didn't know what I wanted. I just wanted to be successful. And then, of course, Jeanna, you don't know this, but she hurt her shoulder just like me and acted like a crazy person running around and doing boxes, and I did suitcases, and
she's your like, research.
Yes, I know. And I was like, she hurt her shoulders, and I was like, and then she went into this whole process as how she healed it, and I sort of did the same thing. And so I was like, oh, I get this girl, this Reverend Doctor girl
with the broken wing that's fixed now.
I was called my broken wing, okay, you know, and I feel like it's maybe not everybody has had the broken wing, okay, but a lot of people come into this world not knowing what their what is. And there's a few people that come in knowing, you know, like my son came in, was gifted at music, and that's just his lane. Now he's still trying to figure out the what in that what. But, you know, a lot of us that came into this world, we don't know.
Yeah. And so there are some of us that do come in and don't fulfill it. Right.
Right. So. Yeah. And what a pain that is. Like, I'm sure that there are tons of people, including myself.
Pain on both sides.
As far as I've gone towards, you know, being who I am, there's still a huge way to go. And so that pain of living a life unfulfilled or fully realized, it's like, so if we can make little, I call them base hits, you know, I want to get a base hit every day, just something that puts me back on track, even though I might, you know, go astray several steps. As long as I keep moving in that direction, that juices me, that becomes compelling. And then we become an attractor field for more of like kind. So if I'm stepping in the direction of that for which I was born, the universe, because everything's energy, everything's frequency, it starts to bring me people, places, circumstances, and events that match at that vibratory frequency. So that's why we want to kind of rig our environment so that it helps keep us in a flow state. I just tossed out a bunch of things. If you want to get specific.
I love it.
Oh, yeah. No, this is good.
For sure. So let's say we have somebody in the audience that's been in a corporate job for a long time. I was one of those people. I left at the end of last year. I was miserable as a corporate. I was an accountant. No, I was actually like the CFO. I was a C-suite, and I always,
and we worked together at the same company.
And so I always knew that I was in the wrong spot. So for those people that should not wait as long as me. I always knew since I was young that I should not be an accountant. I did it to be practical. There were a variety of stability and other reasons why I did that. So somebody in our audience that wants to juice it up, because that was not juicy, although I was successful on paper. Right. Internally, I was not successful. And so for those people, how do they go about juicing it up?
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. So this is it's always exciting when you ask something and I actually have something to say about it.
I love that.
I had a client he worked for the government. He was making a decent salary, not terrific. And he didn't want to be working in that capacity any longer. So we did a couple of things. One is I started having him slowly remove some things from his office space. Just start withdrawing your energy from that space. At the same time, we began to get really, I work with Michael Bernard Beckwith. He's the founder and director of the Agape International Spiritual Center, and he has something called the life visioning process. So I start doing the life visioning process to become open and available. It's not visualizing what you want, although there's definitely a place for that. You know, I want a red Maserati. It's not that. It's become open and available to what is God, source, nature, higher consciousness's greatest idea of itself as my life, like starting to open up what's possible. And so as we began to do this work of like opening up in his consciousness what's possible, and he'd been doing the same job for 100 years, so he didn't have any sense that there was something else. So we're withdrawing energy from what we don't want, that old job, and we're juicing in the possibility, the vastness of what can happen. And because we are all energy, that's not airy-fairy, that's science, we attract at the level of our frequency. So I want to do whatever it takes to vibrate, to oscillate at the level of what it is I do want, not what I don't want. We're really good at being clear about what we don't want. I don't want to be poor. I don't want to be fat. I don't want to be blah, 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 blah. And when we focus on that, we just attract more of the same, right? I could say more about that, but I'm going to stay here. So what we want to do is focus on what you do desire. So we got really interested in like, what are the qualities that he would like to experience in a new position? What are some of the things? And we did this process, and he now is in a 7-figure job, has been for several years. And he's like living beyond anything he'd imagined. So the two things that we did there, and what I would recommend for folks, so you don't have to like quit on a dime without any kind of plan, just start to slowly withdraw your energy from what you are in. If it's a relationship, if it's a, you know, health and fitness thing that's not working for you, if it's a job situation, and begin to open up in our brains and our neural pathways and our synapses possibility and spaciousness for what can be. And then you'll start to draw to yourself people, places, circumstances, and events. And when you get a hit, that's when you take an action. When you feel something inside that says, call this person, send that email, you know, those things. That's a good start.
And those are not always overt, right? Those, but they're like when you're dialed in and aligned, then those little suggestions from the universe around, send that email, you know, call so-and-so, are kind of almost innate to you, and you just have to trust, right? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Yeah, Jeanna, that's really helpful, because how do you get clear about what the voice is? Because sometimes there's a voice that's like, you suck. That's not the voice we're tuning into, right? So ways to get clear about that real inner voice, find out what opens up your creative flow. For me, walks in nature. I go for a walk and I'm dictating in my phone half the time because I'm so inundated with inspiration, right? That works for Holly.
Yeah.
Soul sister. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, because we're soul sisters, of course. So find out what kind of opens up your creative juices, your creative channels. I like, you know, close the curtains in my room, close the door, blast music, dance, sensual dance, scantily clad dance, anything that, helps me feel, get out of just being a head up and get into my full body self. Because how good are we, a lot of us women, at being like intellectual from here up? I want my whole body involved. And then and then the creative juices start flowing. And then when that voice inside has this idea, like, oh, we should do this, that's coming from a creative, generative space.
Right.
And so the more we do this, the more we build up that trust. Meditation is a powerful one. Chanting, yoga, working out, anything that puts you in a lightly hypnotic state where the conscious brain can kind of chill out a little bit. Conscious brain is everything we're currently aware of. And then we can kind of sink down past the critical mind, which is like all the judging and the assessing and the evaluating. And then you can go into the subconscious mind, which is like the control center for our entire being. That's what we want to plug into. So when I'm out for a walk in nature, my conscious mind relaxes, the critical faculty gets more pliable, and I can go into that subconscious area, the control center for my beingness, and become open and available to guidance.
So good.
I know. I love it. I love that she's actually succumbing to the sisterhood too. I like that too. But I'm going to ask a question.
Filing the paperwork to adopt you as her sister. Yeah. Well, that too. I'll help with the restraining
We'll have
order.
to first do a little test to see if y'all like sweets and what kind of sweets, and make sure we're like.
I'll take the test. I love tests. Okay. Love tests.
And she loves sweets, so I think he's probably going to be just fine.
Okay,
so I've never asked this question before. So brace yourself, Jeanna. When you talk about removing your energy from what you don't want, whether it's a corporate job or being too heavy, seeing that weight on the scale, do triggers hold you back? And, like when I was in the corporate job, it was a lot of time that you spend there. And then there were a lot of emotional triggers. And even when you leave, you don't leave.
For a while.
Well, I mean, just in a day, you go home with it.
Got you. Yeah, you're saying at the end of the day.
Which I tried to clear that out. And even if it's weight or something, you see that thing and then you're like, oh, I can't wear my pants. And like it haunts you the whole day. Then I can't have that glass of wine. I don't know. And so did these triggers hold you back? Do we need to address them?
Yeah, because nothing's going to work until we do. God bless us.
Darn it.
We humans, we're so creative in the ways we try to get out of doing what we're going to have to do to be successful. We'll eat, we'll shop, I will clean areas of my room. Like we'll do all kinds of diversions to not face what must be faced. So this is something I got into really strongly over the last couple of years. It's neuroemotional techniques from the Center of Emotional Technology. And there's an understanding that we have three modes to our brain. You've got the survival brain, the emotional brain, and the executive brain. The executive brain, that's the sweet spot. That's where we have creativity. That's where we can come up with new plans. That's where the answers to all of our questions are. But in order to get to that sweet spot, my survival brain first has to be soothed. A lot of us don't even know we're in survival mode, which makes it tricky because survival brain likes to masquerade as executive brain. That's when it's like 2:00 in the morning and you're like, oh, I should drive by his house and see if he's there, even though he said he never wants to speak to me again. I think that's a good idea. I should go. Bang, 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 2 a.m., right? So the way that we deal with the survival brain is learning how to self-soothe. And it's kind of on a regular basis. These last couple of years, the whole world went into survival mode. And so in order for any kind of meaningful progress to occur, we've got to soothe our nervous system, soothe the adrenal system. And so there's some things, I have it on my website and on my Instagram, so I'm not going to do a lot of it, but even just this gesture, it's called self-petting. You take a hand, you run it down from one shoulder down to the palm of the other hand. You do that for 30 seconds. It causes the body to secrete oxytocin, which is a soothing, happy hormone. make sure your temperature is well regulated, have a soothing beverage, make sure the belly's full. So we want to tend to our security needs, make sure you're like well taken care of. Only after the survival brain, and this is very relevant because if you're talking about leaving a job, it's going to spiral us into survival brain. How will I support myself? Am I going to be important anymore? People aren't going to think of me as successful if I don't have that title or that job. So that's the first step, is I got to soothe out that survival brain. And then what we need to do is step into the emotional brain. Only after the survival brain is soothed are we able to move into our emotional brain. That's where you take the time to feel and acknowledge our feelings. So let's just do something for those listening. We'll do one survival breath just for a moment. Breathe in swift through the nose and slow out through slightly parted lips. Breathing in swift through the nose. Slow out through slightly parted lips. For the next 2 breaths, as you exhale, let out a little sound, a low rumble from down deep in the belly, breathing in swift through the nose. So that's a great way to soothe the survival brain. Then let's all move into the emotional brain and just take a moment and notice what you're feeling right now. What are the feelings you have right now? I feel a little bubbly. I feel some excitement. I feel peaceful. I feel happy.
Relaxed,
right? And it doesn't even matter. There isn't like a value attributed to it. So it could be, I feel pissed off, I'm angry, I'm resentful, I'm jealous, I'm insecure. It's whatever it is, it's just in order. Dr. Dan Siegel says felt feelings flow. In order for me to have the availability to my life's purpose and my mission and whatever wants to emerge as me, I've got to be like well emotionally ventilated. So this is where you just take the time and you list it off, like pissed off, angry, happy, sensual, eager, joyful, whatever, all the feelings, just blah, all of them. You feel them and you acknowledge them. Then that lets us rise up into that executive clear thinking space. And that's where it's like that. So if I'm leaving a corporate job, then I've soothed myself, the part that's like freaked out, this is my structure, this is my safety. I'm acknowledging it. Holy shit, like what's going to come of me? I'm going to be homeless. And then it helps us rise into that executive brain state. And that's where it's like, oh, okay, I have this, I'm aware of this, I'm aware of that. Like, what are all the structures that are in place supporting me? Okay, I'm not free falling. Okay, right? And then, oh, maybe I should send that email, pick up the phone, do this, write that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So those pieces have to be addressed.
Right.
Because too often we try to leap into, just quit that job and go for it. But if I'm not taking care of the other two, it won't work. It's not sustainable.
Right.
So when Holly had talked about, coming in and not being sure exactly what she was meant to do here, other than knowing that what she was doing wasn't in alignment at all. I came into the world thinking, I was going to entertain the world and make a lot of money doing it and win a lot of awards, like, an Oscar and, all kinds of things, fly around and do the things. And, I pursued that for a little bit and the F word got in my way of fear and worry and scared and, gave up, came back and found a role that was similar to Holly's. Like, I'm very grateful for it, but doesn't fill me up. And so since we've been doing the podcast, this has been wickedly fulfilling. It fills part of that creative side that I don't have in my day-to-day. But my question is, how do I maybe it was such a deep felt knowing that I was supposed to be an entertainer, that how do I, as I go forward, recraft that in a way, reconnect or recraft or allow myself the space to hear what evolution of that would be for me. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, yeah. And I know that can be so frustrating because a lot of us think like, I know that this is, um, and so there are a couple of pieces to that. One is I like the idea of constantly turning it over to whatever it is that you pray to or believe in that's larger
Mm-hmm.
than yourself, God, spirit, nature. I like turning it over constantly. Like, you know, what will you have me do, Lord? I turn this over to you. I turn over all of it. I also like the idea, the intention of being of service. How can I be of the greatest service? Use me. How can I
Yeah.
be of the greatest service? And then, um, I'll give you an example. I had a client once and she wanted more than anything else to meet her husband. Like she wanted to meet her husband and she made a vision board. And the one thing she was sure about is she wanted a really, really big man, like physically. She wanted like King Kong to feel safe and protected. And so on her vision board, she had like two footprints that were like, huge, right? So, because like only a giant could fill those shoes. So she meets this guy, and he's a great guy, but he's super short. So she knows like he's not the one. And for a couple of years, like he's like right here in her face, and she just keeps like looking for Godzilla because he's got to be arriving any moment. But this other great guy is there. And so they become really good friends and they spend a lot of time, but she's still kind of always looking around. And then finally, she realized what she was looking for in those great big boots is she wanted to feel safe. She wanted to feel safe. She wanted to feel protected. She wanted to be with like a really big man, like a big man. And what she realized is this guy was like the biggest man she's ever known.
Mm-hmm.
His character is huge. So, um, so I think there's a
Love
way in
that.
which like what we put out comes to us. It may not necessarily come in the form we thought.
Yeah.
Gina's here to be a source of entertainment. So I like honoring that. I mean, I've already experienced it in our first 15 minutes, right? So I like honoring that. And then I would just keep
Yeah.
turning it over. You're
I
being
love it.
obedient. Podcast came to you. You're being obedient. We have no idea where this podcast is going to go. We have
Yeah.
no idea who's going to tune in one day. We
Yeah.
have no idea any of these things. So to me, there's a level of obedience of getting quiet, listening, responding,
Mm.
quiet, listening, responding, building up that faith that my life is forming. My life is forming, right?
Oh, I love that.
I know.
Beautiful.
And just for our listeners, we did kind of do exactly what Julie, you're saying. When we birthed the podcast, we didn't even know what it was. And then I said, we have to do this. And I didn't even know what I was saying.
With
but
those scary eyes
Scary
at like
eyes.
6:30 in the morning on the way to work. She's
Yeah.
like, we have to do the podcast.
And then everything sort of just fell in
Yeah.
place. I mean, there was obstacles, but it was nothing
Yeah.
that was, insurmountable.
Yeah.
And
And nothing is for naught.
right.
That's one of the things that I really learned. There were so many things that I studied along my way, and I'm like, wow, this is such a tangent, and it's all coming into play.
Mm.
And then there are also things that I was compelled to do, but for whatever reasons I didn't follow through on. And years or decades later, I see where, oh, would have been really great because now I got to reroute and go get that piece that I thought to do at 21, but I like got myself I
And
went
didn't.
astray.
I
Yeah,
love
like,
that.
like
That's good.
just one thing real quick on that. Like there was something I was really compelled to do when I was 21 years old, and I shared it with the family member, and just her response was like, really? And it was enough to make me stop. And my gosh, did that mess me up. My own choice not to continue, to let myself be swayed. So there is that piece as well.
There is that piece, and I would do things, and I thought, why am I became a life coach. I didn't like coaching one-on-one. I learned astrology. I'm an astrologer, and I was like, I have no idea. I don't want to do readings. Okay, but it is so useful. And I used to shame myself for dropping things because I'm a great dropper. And those I finish,
But you're a great picker upper too.
but I pick it up too. And then I was like, why am I doing this? I'm wasting my time. What am I doing? And I would just invite everybody to not judge those things, because you're right. Now astrology helps us all the time. If you told me your sign, I'd be able to connect with you and give you maybe some information that makes you feel happier and more joyful, raise your vibration. And all of that is a beautiful thing.
It's showing up and served.
Yeah, I give advice all the
Right.
time. It's free. That's why I tell my kids, you're so lucky, it's free.
I tell my son that all the time. I don't think he cares right now.
No, they don't.
They don't.
They have
I'm like,
zero appreciation.
People
Yeah,
pay
yeah.
me so much money for this. He's like, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to share one other strategy that I use a lot. So I do the neuro-emotional techniques, the survival brain, emotional brain, executive brain, because I find that super helpful. I also really like working in partnership with an accountability buddy because it helps me stay on track. A friend of mine, Pat Finn, he has an organization, a company called Rubicon Results, and it's like teams of people, and you have like teams of accountability. And I got 2 audiobooks done in a 10-week period, just having that support. So I think that, for myself, I've tried to do life alone because I'm kind of a loner type, and I just, I can handle it, right?
Yeah.
But what I have come to realize is support is a good thing, and support makes me better. So, for those listening, I would say, like, who's your team? Sometimes I'll write up a list of who's on my team. Yeah. What are the resources that I have? What do I have going for me? And then, juice up your team, love up your team, right?
Right.
I love that. I think we should create an app like dating, but it's like a matching accountability partner.
Oh, it's great.
Oh yeah, it's huge.
Because there's a sense of community there. So I really believe like having that connection, that sense of community, we can call it accountability. I hate accountability. I want to rebrand that too.
Okay.
Although I'm extremely accountable. I mean, too accountable. Like I became so accountable that I lost myself in the accountability, So I think that would be really good. But there's a community that helps you move forward.
Well, we really one of the reasons we started the podcast was just that is that we felt so fortunate working together every day and holding each other accountable. Some people holding others more accountable than others, but we really. How blessed we were to have this relationship where I knew she felt as committed to my growth and success and happiness as I did, sometimes more, really. And she would always challenge me and push me. We would dialogue about, a meeting we were at and how that went. And she'd provide great perspective. And hopefully I did the same.
Absolutely.
And we had other people watch and go, gosh, you guys should do a podcast. It's so good to listen to, and what a gift. And we sort of hoped the podcast would provide that community. If people didn't have that, it would be that inspiration to have more of a virtual collection of BFFs that are doing the same work. So
yeah,
it's a big
really,
deal.
really helpful because there's so many distractions. I speak a lot about rigging our environment to pay silent dividends, So I like Dan Buettner. He's the guy responsible for the Blue Zones books. He's really wonderful. And he talks about how people who live the longest, those are the Blue Zones, people that are living well into their hundreds, they make the healthy choice the easy choice. Right. So they're not jumping in a car. They're walking a couple miles to get to their store. They're picking their own food. And so I always think like how to make the healthy choice, the prosperous choice, the loving choice, the easy choice. And so there are a number of things along those lines where I have so much information. I'm trying to So I practice feng shui, the art of placement. So it's placing things that juice us, that inspire us, that compel us in different areas of the room. Marie Diamond has a brilliant one on Mind Valley. So that's the art of placement. And by the way, Jeanna, she got a bunch of little tiny plastic Academy Awards and put them in her success corner. She does feng shui. Okay. Like how is that going to lead to an Academy Award? And
love that.
She attracted somebody in Hollywood who had won Academy Award. And so she did their feng shui in their home. And then she was like, I think I want more than that. And so she put like several of them up, I think 8 or something like that. And then she became Steven Spielberg's client. It's just how things work.
Oh
So
my God.
the
I
art of
love
placement,
that story.
yeah. Okay, because so anyway,
Okay, that's great.
the art of placement is a really big deal. In my book, What's Your What, I do a lot of exercises on how to clarify your what by finding out what are the qualities of God or nature or spirit, whatever you call it, that you're most resonant with, that that represent who you are. And one of the ways that you can do that is pull together all old yearbooks, cards, notes, anything that people have written to you, and write down all the adjectives that have ever been used to describe you, and then put them in categories. And what you will find is that you have been seen, you have been known, people see you. So, for example, when I did this, the first time, there was tons in the inspirational category. So I was like, okay, something about me is here to inspire. And then as I've evolved and become like willing to step more and more into myself, because like I'm a sweet kind of appearing person, but all of a sudden when I get off stage, people started describing me a little differently, like fierce or badass. And I was like, oh yes, yes. So that's like a new, like, yes, I'll step into that too. So to surround your environment with images, pictures, what are the colors, where you feel what it is that you want to be and demonstrate as. So you kind of rig the environment, you rig what you wear to reflect that quality. That's another way of like paying silent dividends, so that the structure is already always reminding you. Marianne Williamson, I was on stage with her one day. She like gave me this great compliment, and I have it right by my altar. So I see it every day. Like I remember Michael Beckwith has said things. I have that one right there. So that's how we juice our environment. And then when I see those things, when I feel those things, the frequency of them, it causes me to oscillate up. I start vibrating at that level, and then opportunities, people, places, circumstances, I become an attractor field for that.
Okay, I love this.
Listen, this is what we need to do. We're going to have a party. We're going to invite our good friends. We're going to have something bubbly. You can have water. I'm going to have champagne. And we'll write about everybody and then gift them at the end of the party.
Yes.
Oh yeah, it's so lovely.
Beautiful.
It's so lovely. And then you can start to see like, oh, okay, so this is who I am. It's really helpful. And people, we all already have it. I went back to my baby book when I was first born, and my grandmother wrote something in my baby book, and like she saw me before anybody else. And she was not somebody throughout my life that I thought was like a champion of mine and really knew who I was. But on some level, I was conveying who I am as an infant, as like a 2-day-old. We're seen. Wow.
Yeah,
people feel us.
What's interesting, 2 things here, is I don't really write down what I'm going to say in the intro, but I have your bio in front of me, so I know that. But I was like, what a badass title. What's your what? Okay, and I almost said that. And so my 2 words for...
But the Reverend stopped you, probably.
I know, the Reverend. It's true, a little bit. Okay, but what's interesting is, in doing research about you, I absolutely would call you fierce and badass. Absolutely. That would be...
Even just this conversation today.
With the megawatt smile.
Oh,
absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so I wanted to say that.
Yeah.
And then I want to take a left turn if we have a few more minutes. I want to talk about spiritual wellness and what does that mean?
Yeah. Spiritual wellness. Okay. I think that has a lot to do with the neuroemotional techniques that I was talking about. I think the way to be spiritually well is to make sure that the nervous system is well regulated. So it's the things that I commented on with the survival brain. I think spiritual wellness also has to do with naming and acknowledging our feelings. A lot of times in the spiritual community, we like to go above it, spiritual bypass is what it's called, and just be like, I'm enlightened. And when somebody finds a way that works, I'll be first in line. But until then, I feel like I have to get my feet in the mud. I've got to get my nervous system well regulated, and I've got to feel and acknowledge all the feelings. And that allows me to move into a place where I can become really spiritually healthy. And the way that I maintain spiritual health is by spiritual readings, spiritual study. I'm at the Agape International Spiritual Center, taking the classes there, services on Sundays, writing, dance, like all of that stuff. I mean, even like, years ago, when I wanted to get a man, I took Sheila Kelly's S Factor class. Do you know of Sheila Kelly?
No.
Okay.
I should probably
So
take
I was watching Oprah. I was watching Oprah. This makes me feel like a little more justified in telling my pole dancing stories. But Sheila Kelly was on Oprah, and she has something called the S Factor, and it was pole dancing as exercise, but it's so much more than exercise. It was like, as I mentioned earlier, I can be like head up. I can be very intellectual. This got me in my body. It was sensual. And so even doing that kind of thing, even sensual dance in the privacy of my own bedroom by candlelight, that tends to my spiritual well-being, right?
Yes.
So whatever it is that nurtures you, whatever it is that balances you, whatever it is that's a counterbalance to the chaos and the insanity that we are bombarded with on a regular basis. So spiritual wellness might mean not watching the news. Maybe you read some headlines or not getting sucked in. There was a while there a couple of years ago where I was like flipping back and forth between CNN and Fox all day long because there was something always happening. And I got so sucked in and unhappy, and I had to just stop, right? Like I can stay informed, but I'm not going to be like seduced by these, like the seduction of the horrific titles, right? And the fear seduction, the fear porn that happens in the media. So I think that protects my spiritual well-being as well. So it's the same thing I said about if you want to leave your corporate office, you withdraw energy from what's not working, right?
So good.
The
Media
news
does not work for me. And you juice energy where you do want it. I build my faith. I have a son. He's going out more and more with friends. Up until this past year, I was always there. I was always with him. I always knew where he was going to be. I was clocking him, And this is the first time where he's out of the nest. Makes me want to cry. And I am having to build up that muscle of trust. I trust that his life is for him. I trust that all is well. And so the more I fortify myself with that, the more I begin to attract at that level, right?
I love that. I trust and added Live 360, so I knew where it was at.
Yeah.
For safety. Absolutely. I said for safety, not for stalking.
Yes, yeah. I'm really happy to hear you talk about the nervous system because I don't think that comes up in this space of conversation around personal development and growth
and manifestation.
It really doesn't. And I think if it's just common knowledge, like if you come from a place of depletion, you're not going to be able to attract something, but we don't talk about it enough. And so I'm really thrilled in all of our conversations. It's never come up. The importance of, healing that and getting it back to a neutral state so that you can bring in energy from a healthy place.
Right. A lot of times people will be like, oh, the law of manifestation doesn't work. I've been praying for this. It didn't happen. And they get so upset. And there are a couple of pieces that are practical that we can look at. First, is your desire to accomplish what you want a toward a desire or an away from? Are you moving towards your life purpose? Are you moving towards being of service? Are you moving towards something that is compelling and exciting and reveals your gifts in the world? Or are you doing what you're doing to move away from what you don't want? I don't want them to ever be able to ignore me again, so I'm going to get famous. I don't want to ever be poor again, so I'm going to get rich. I don't want to ever be fat again and be called names, so I'm going to be real skinny. Anytime there's an away from, it sort of depletes. And there's a good word, I'm not thinking of it right now. The trajectory. So you want to make sure you're moving. It like distorts it. So you want to make sure that there's a strong towards factor in what we're creating, and also the subconscious mind doesn't do negatives. So if I were to say, no matter what you do right now, do not imagine a great big hot pink elephant and a little purple polka dot bikini doing a jig and putting their fanny in front. Like, don't think of that. In order to not think of it, you first have to think of it. So if I'm praying to win the lottery and I'm praying to make a lot of money or meet my beloved or whatever it is, and the whole time I'm thinking, because I don't want to be poor anymore, or don't want to be alone, that's all my subconscious mind is hearing is be alone, be poor, be alone, be poor, be fat, be whatever, whatever it is. And by fat, I mean unhealthy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to look at what our drivers are, to find what is compelling and a toward thrusting drive. You know, what's going to bring me towards, because to be honest, like, I'm a speaker. I don't really like speaking that much. I have to wear Spanx and high heels and makeup and hair and all that, right? I don't have to, but I choose to. Yeah. Like, that's not, super fun. And then you're up in front of a lot of people. And if you're up in front of thousands of people, somebody's going to think you suck and need to let you know and all that stuff. So that's not really like super exciting for me. But when I think of seeing how light I can be, how much can I become pure energy? How much can I allow myself to be a vessel of brilliant, massive healing light so that people feel it like electricity, and there's awakeness and there's transformation and all that stuff? That feels exciting to me. I'm like, all right, I'll put on Spanx for that,
Something needs to be held in because my energy is going out.
It's going out.
But the thighs are staying in. That is awesome. That's a beautiful way to think about it, though. It really does. Like,
it reframes everything.
Reframes everything.
And then I don't get all worried and nervous before I get on stage. I might have a little bit of nerves, but it's nothing like it used to be because it's not my ego. It's not about like, oh, I'll have those moments of like, I hope I don't get on stage and like forget everything or not know what to say or whatever. It's like, oh, I want to be out there and love them. I just want to love them so much. And then that's a whole different thing. And
then the right words always come.
Yeah. And even if they don't, even if I fumble, even if I like fuck it up, the intention is so clear that people are well loved. Like, I do the benedictions at service at Agape a lot. And I remember just a couple weeks ago, I was up there and I was so full, like my heart was overflowing. And sometimes it was like the words were just coming faster than my tongue and my mouth could get them out. And so the words were fumbling, but my heart was like, and that translated. Even though it wasn't the most eloquent thing, the energy, the heart, is what matters, and it's what people pick up on. That's why somebody could get up here and say all the perfect right things, and if they're not in alignment with it, we feel nothing. We don't care.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why it's so important. And one other thing, I feel like I'm ranting right now.
No, do it, Reverend Julie. Keep ranting.
Another thing, a lot of times it's easy to think that the things, our greatest pains, our greatest hurts, the biggest ouches were like sideways things. They were things that took us out of our life. But what I've come to find is that they're what we're meant to teach. I came in with so much fear about things. I came in, freedom so important to me, always has been. And as I heal myself, and I don't have to be like a million steps ahead, I just have to get a couple of steps. And actually that's easier, because if I'm, fully realized Buddha, I'm going to speak differently than if I'm just somebody that's a little further down the path in this particular area, right? Exactly. It's more tangible. And so as I've learned to embrace that the things that were my pains, the things that maybe are still my struggles, but I'm learning how to work with better or be with better, that's the gift. So as you're listening to this, whatever it is, the biggest things, they become our gifts. They become our service. How can this be my service to the world? How can I mitigate other people from stepping into the pothole that I stepped in? Maybe I could fill this one up so you can step lightly.
Okay. I feel like I went to a service.
I love that.
It was so
it was so good.
So good. So good.
Well, I was going to ask, I know that our time is going down. We can't have her all day.
I know.
Unfortunately. But I found your healing story very compelling, and I wondered if you could share a little bit about, like, if we have aches and pains or we have an accident or something, your healing story of how you look at that personally, I think would be a big benefit for people.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I had an experience a few years back. I leave for Agape at the crack of dawn to go to work on Sunday mornings. And I don't turn on lights because I don't want to wake up my family. So I was on the third floor of my home and I was walking downstairs and I have a penchant for like 6-inch stilettos. So I'm walking down the stairs in my high heels and I fell and I tore my rotator cuff. And I was told to just lay off of it for a while and it would be okay. But I have a lot of like willfulness and we were moving at the time. And so I continued to pack boxes and move. And the long story less long, I ended up losing all mobility in this arm, my right arm, for a full year. It took that long to get it back. Like I couldn't put my hair in a ponytail. It was really, really beyond. And so they're lessons. Like, so that's the first thing, is to start hearing all the lessons, all the ways in which I don't take care of myself because I'm like, I don't want to wake the baby. I don't want to wake the family, right? Like, look out for yourself. Like, that's a good lesson for me. The willfulness, take time. Don't lift heavy boxes. You need to take a break. I don't have a break inside of me. I don't have a break to turn on. I go, sometimes to my detriment. At that point, to my detriment. There was a metaphor about that. I had the experience right before that of I was with a group of people and I'd had this vision of myself with wings. It was like an altered state of consciousness experience, a dream but not dream kind of a thing. And I could feel the wings on my back. And I shared it in an environment that was not 100% safe for me because there was competition feelings in there. And it wasn't, as soon as I shared, like, I felt my wings, I could just feel like, no, this was not a safe environment to share such a sacred thing. And it was shortly after that my wing broke. And so there are lessons about that. So I like the idea when we go through things, and we do go through things, there's a technique called body talk, where if you have a part of your body that feels has discomfort, I like to imagine, see, sense, visualize, pretend that I can kind of scoop that part out, sit it on the palm of my hand, whatever it is, and notice, does it have a size? Does it have a shape? Does it have a color? Does it have a voice? Does it remind me of somebody? Like that part of myself, could be like a parental unit. Like, you're getting too big for your britches. Who do you think you are, having wings? How dare you? We don't, in our family, we don't do wings. That's too far. If you have wings, you'll fly away. We don't want you flying away. We want you to stay here. Like, all the voices, and we all have it. And who knows who's going to show up on the palm of the hand, but it's a practice called body talk. And just to begin that dialogue with that part that's in discomfort, what do you need? And so to just summarize it real quick with body talk, I like to create a contract. The first thing I do is I thank it, because I understand that whatever reason it showed up for, it's for a purpose that's relevant to my soul's full realization in this lifetime. So you're showing up to let me know something, right? And then, I like to think of it in terms of a contract. Like, you're here now, and this is not working for me because I really would like to have full access to my arm. And so can we come up with a new agreement? Would you be willing to help me get back my mobility if and then what are those things that I need to do in order to, and you go back and forth. It's a negotiation. So I need to be willing to claim my power. I need to be, if I'm going to say I've got wings, I got to be willing to use them and not just keep them closed up and take them out for a party every once in a while. I got to be willing to spread my wings. So I do body talk with that part. I think that would be a really nice piece, a beginner piece for somebody listening, to start getting a sense of and kind, first of all, thank you. And what do you need? How can I support you? Because I really want to shift this energy. And would you be willing to go from depleting me, holding me back, into another, can I give you a new job description? Can you help me take flight? What do you think about that? And then what are your concerns about that? Oh, you're worried that I would fly away. You're worried that I'd leave the nest. You're worried that some people are going to be left behind. Okay, and then work that through, right? Because it's showing up, it's showing different parts where there are fears or concerns. And so you can like work out a contract. That's a nice beginner part.
I love that,
It's
Jeanna.
so good. And it helps connect the head with the body too. It starts that
Yes.
practice, right, of listening
Right.
and talking and connecting. I love it.
I love it. Okay, Reverend Dr. Julie.
What a conversation.
I know. As we wind down, is there anything else you'd like to express to our audience?
You know, I'm on Instagram. That's a great way to see what I'm up to. I have a website, juliemoret.com, and I send out about one email a year or every 5 years usually. So I always intend to.
Sounds like the uncorked emails strategy.
So,
yeah.
I think that life is hopeful. You know, there's a lot that would show in our news that would say like, it's a doomsday, run for the hills. But I think that life is for us. And I think that there are opportunities at hand. And the best way we can serve ourselves, our families, our communities, humanity, is by taking the time to feed that creativity inside of ourselves. So however that works for you, if it means, you know, you just got to get your space or get into nature or, you know, dance or sculpt or paint, something that opens up the creative channels, because it's through our creativity that all of the answers to all of our problems reside, like everything. So it means soothing the survival brain, acknowledging the emotions, and then like, you know, let that creativity flow, and good things will follow.
Good things will follow.
Let's just get creative, people.
That's right. Okay, so this is what we're doing, Jeanna.
Yeah.
It's the first time ever.
Oh, good Lord.
Okay, we are going to tell you you're funny, you're super informative and smart.
Gorgeous.
You are gorgeous. You're badass. I mean, listen. Let's keep going.
Well, I mean, like, I kind of just want to hang out with her.
I know.
Really, truly.
Anyway, we are so
phenomenal.
very grateful for you today. Your generosity of being here with us, sharing all your knowledge. We'll put all your information in the notes so people can get a hold of you. Also, if you're in California, Agape.
Yeah.
When we're in California,
and when you
we're
come
coming.
to Agape, say hello to me.
Absolutely,
we will,
we will.
for
Sure.
sure. I mean, if you see someone that looks like Holly just walking around the hood, just call me and I'll help you with the paperwork and the restraining order, because she might just swing on through Austin.
Very funny.
Show up like
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the tree. She's gonna be in the tree behind me.
Hi,
Hi, Julie. Hi.
Exactly.
It's your soul sister.
That's awesome.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you,
My
Julie.
honor.
It was a true honor today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. My absolute pleasure. Thank you both.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.